that we might have some. Thanks, Avery. Avery is my great sidekick who remembers all of the special features. So today's meeting is being recorded. Thank you all for joining us today for our Membership Matters Connection call. My name is Janet Thompson. I am Membership Liaison for the Pennsylvania Medical Society, along with Avery Crott, who you'll see on the side. We both work with our members around Pennsylvania, as well as our medical student section, our resident and fellow section, and our international medical graduate section. So some of you may look at our name and it may be familiar based on some membership interactions, some based on our section work. So thanks for being here. Today we have a focus on independent physicians, and we have seen and received a lot of questions in the recent past regarding some of our offerings for independent physicians. So we decided to use today's call as a highlight for that. Putting the passion back in the practice of medicine is, I'm sure, as dear to all of your hearts as it is to the medical societies. What is nice is this is also something that's very dear to our current president, Dr. Kristen Sandell, and we'll talk about her in a little bit. You're okay, Avery, to change that slide. So today, how can PAMED help you? So you're all here because you're a member, and we thank you for that. Some of the things that we're going to hope to help you find the answers to while on today's call is, do you know how to find your member resources? Have you utilized resources from the PA Clinical Network? If not, today you're going to learn how to do that. Do you want to become more involved in the IPPCS? And many of you may say, what is that? That is our Independent Physician Practice Caucus section. It's a little bit of a mouthful right now. And with us today is Dr. Wheeler, who is the chair of that section. So today we're going to focus on a handful of things that will hopefully help you in your day-to-day and in maybe some goal setting. Before we get started, Avery, if you could advance the slides, we want to go ahead and just very quickly remind you of who Pennsylvania Medical Society is. We are created with a bunch of different spokes to our wheels, and what we have decided to do is put those into three categories for our members. Our member engagement category, which is our foundation, our county medical societies, which all of you are involved in, our teams, which are some clients that are outside of the Pennsylvania Medical Society, many of which are medical and healthcare, our PAC, which is our political action committee, and our partners. With physician leadership, we have our board of trustee, we have our House of Delegates, which for any of those on the call who is involved as a delegate or a leader for PAMED, right now we're focusing on all things HOD. Dr. Pagan, who's with us on the for the PA Clinical Network, has been involved in the House of Delegates for many years, and he's probably has a sense of relief right now because maybe he's not quite as busy with the House of Delegates this year. We have our task forces and we have our sections. So I mentioned the medical student, the resident and fellow, and the international medical graduate. But in addition to those, we've got the Independent Physician Caucus, as well as a women physician section and an early career physician section. And then our organizational components. We have our healthcare operations team, which helps our members with all things practice related. CME, with this being a licensure year, CME department is extremely busy this year, making sure that everyone is up to speed with getting their license renewed. Our communication team, which gets you all of the messaging, both to our members as well as out into the universe. And our advocacy team, which is the folks that go to the Capitol and fight for Pennsylvania medicine. I'm talking really quickly because I do want to make sure that our speakers all have enough time. So Avery, if you can advance the slide. Very quickly, a few side notes. Make sure that if you have not done so already, that you have access to your Pennsylvania Medical Society web account. Username and password. If you've forgotten it, don't worry, we can help you reset it. You will have access to all of our online resources only when you are logged in. So we want to make sure that you remember to log in if you're looking for CME, any information, registering for calls. If you're a delegate and you're looking for House of Delegates information, Almost all of our information that is specific is under the member login. So we want to make sure that you have access. The dose is our weekly email communication that goes out on Thursdays. That is where we get to tell you all of the different things that either we're working on, we hope to work on, or we need to work on. It is our way of saying, this is where we're at. This is what we want you to focus on or know about. Our PAMED Member Inquiry Center. This used to be called the Knowledge Center. This is a system for our members to reach staff and for staff to triage to the appropriate department, division, or staff member for follow-up. This is where you will find access to the Member Inquiry Center all over our website. This is where you can go and ask a question, and we promise to get you an answer back. And then we have our Be Heard and Connect with Your Leaders. Our Be Heard page is on our website. I can absolutely give you some direction with that. And when we do follow up from today's call, we will put a link for that. But our Be Heard is our way of giving our members access to our leaders. So if you have a physician leader that you would like to connect with, we encourage you to go to our website, go to the Be Heard page, find the leader that you're looking to connect with, and send them a message through that system so that they can then respond back to you directly. So with all of that, I will take a quick break, or take a quick breath, and we're going to go ahead, Avery, and hold off for talking about Dr. Sandell. I meant to move this slide and I didn't, so that we can go ahead and get into our first speaker, which is our PA Clinical Network. Again, as we're on today's call, please don't hesitate to ask questions. Today, we have Keith Taylor with us, as well as Dr. Pagan, who are going to go through some of the ways that the PA Clinical Network can help work with and assist you in your practice. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you all, and I welcome any questions that anyone has as we go.
Thanks, Janet. Appreciate that. As mentioned, my name is Keith Taylor. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development for the PA Clinical Network. I'm joined by Dr. Pagan, our CEO and Chair of the PACN, and certainly happy to be here and appreciate the invite from Avery and Janet. And I also personally look forward to hearing from the Independent Practice Physicians Caucus section as well a little later in this. You're going to find Dr. Pagan and I are going to pass the baton back and forth a little bit throughout this. By all means, please keep it informal, interrupt us, speak up, put it in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with, and we'll address whatever we can. And with that, I think I'll get started. We're going to talk a little bit about the PA Clinical Network, or PACN, as we often refer to ourselves. To the best of our knowledge, the PA Clinical Network is the only clinically integrated network in the country that has been created by and supported by a state medical society. We wear that badge very proudly, as you can see by the words under our logo at the top of this slide. So we do not shy away from that at all. Next slide, please. These are some of the objectives that led to the creation of the PA Clinical Network and continue to drive us. First bullet point, a commitment to preserve independent practices in the state of Pennsylvania, maintain a choice, not just for physicians, but also for patients to go to an independent practice should they choose, and to create or maintain a competitive market and provide an alternative to the physician hospital organizations or the larger integrated delivery systems. And of course, Pennsylvania Medical Society having the ability and interest in investing in the network provided some very strong roots for us to grow from. The mission of the organization is to be the most trusted and successful clinical network with a vision to create a thriving future for the practice of medicine by removing barriers and optimizing outcomes. And that always keeps us focused as we refer back to those. I am going to ask Dr. Pagan to walk us through the next 3 slides on how the PACN came to be, more from the PAMED leadership perspective. So Dr. Pagan, if I can throw the baton to you for the next few slides, that would be great.
Sure, no, more than happy. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to participate with PAMED and the whole family of Pennsylvania medicine. Janet was talking about a lot of the tools that the Medical Society has for its members, and this is yet another one of those tools. It was born over a decade ago in the House of Delegates as the Pennsylvania Medical Society acknowledged that the payment paradigms were shifting. The traditional fee-for-service was changing into quality-based payments, although at that time it was very poorly defined what exactly that was. However, it was obvious to the medical society and its leaders at the time that we needed to give our doctors in Pennsylvania the tools to understand what quality-based payments are and how to succeed in that environment, so that we weren't just bystanders or part of the downstream effects of these overarching policies, but rather in the fray of it, that we were helping to do it ourselves in that. Next slide. Another House of Delegates, again, these two House of Delegates were fairly unique because it was called the Committee of the Whole, meaning that the entire meeting was dedicated to these concepts. And some of you in the room may have been there and may have remembered that. So the first one was that blueprint document, just recognizing how important that shift was and to get our docs involved. And then several years later was the concept that actually started the PA Clinical Network there, or called the Practice Options Initiative. As Keith was saying, the fundamental part was to provide options for doctors, that you didn't have to be employed necessarily in a big system, that if you wanted to, you could be independent. And likewise, a rising tide floats all boats. A healthy, thriving, independent practice environment means that anybody that is in employed settings has a choice. You don't have to necessarily accept the next contract that your employer is giving you, because you have value and your patients recognize that and the payers recognize that in doing that. So that was where this was born. Next slide. Janet showed a slide before about the Pennsylvania Medical Society and its various arms. As a corporate structure, the PA Clinical Network, and you may hear the term Care Center Collaborative, or PIMSCO, which was a prior holding of the Medical Society, is the official corporate body, but in reality, it just exists as the PA Clinical Network. And now we have a sister organization, the PA Clinical Network, ACO. For CMS, you need to have a separate corporate body to participate as an ACO, which we recently started a couple of years ago. So this is kind of where it came from. And again, as Keith said, very proud and very unique in being a independent medical association plan, unlike many clinical networks and many ACOs, which are associated with a payer, associated with a large hospital system, associated with a venture capital or for profit. Again, the Pennsylvania Medical Society has your back and started this network. Next slide. I'll hand this back over to Keith in the spirit of the Olympics. Stick and pass the baton.
Thanks, Dr. Pagan. And as I go through the remainder of the slides, I'll ask Dr. Pagan to please chime in and provide any additional commentary to any slide or comment. So please do. This is just a visual of how the PA Clinical Network aims to help practices not just survive, but to actually thrive. I would suggest that when you look at this graph and you look at the blue diagonal line going up and to the right, that if you're on that line, you're probably just surviving. That's the inflation or the cost that it takes to run a practice. Our mission is to help these practices not just stay above that line, but to go as high above that line as possible. So the gray boxes represent fee-for-service reimbursement that, as you can see and have all experienced, I'm sure, very minimally, incrementally go up year on year, whereas the cost of running your practice is going up much more. So what we try to do is we stack on top of that value-based contracts, which yields value-based dollars, to help not just make up for that, but to help them thrive and continue to be rewarded for the care that they're providing. Unfortunately, funds that pay for value-based incentives are often taken from the fee-for-service side, yet not all physicians, particularly independent physicians, have access to some of those value-based contracts. So the PA Clinical Network, by aggregating these practices and their patient lives, the PACN can then leverage those lives and help with access to value-based contracts, and hence value-based dollars. Next slide, please. A lot of things need to be in place to have a successful CIN. I'm not going to pick this graph apart, but just briefly go through. Of course, we need, starting at the top there around 12 o'clock, meaningful physician leadership, need to have some funds coming in and out. These next two, the data management and care management, I'll come back to. Guidelines and protocols, that doesn't mean we're telling people how to practice medicine. We're just helping them keep their eye on the appropriate things. Of course, there's contracting, performance improvement. We need to keep the needle moving in the right direction. We do credential clinicians into the PACN. And then, of course, you have to have an eye on economic efficiencies and quality. But two of these, which is highlighted in the gray box, tend to be the most cost prohibitive sometimes for practices on their own to get into this world of the value-based side. And that's the two that I'm going to highlight on the next couple slides. Next slide, please. The PA Clinical Network, as the PA Clinical Network, we work with multiple population health platforms across several lines of business to help provide some informative, actionable, and as we like to say, bite-sized data for our practices, that those practices, along with the PA Clinical Network quality team, can work together on to ensure clinicians are being rewarded for the great care they're providing. These population health platforms, as you can see on the slide, they're cloud-based, they're compatible with almost all EHR or EMR systems and billing systems. Now, the practices do have access to it in their office, and they can use it and filter as much as they would like. But what we found is that's just more clicking and more work for the practice. We try to handle that behind the scenes, break that data down, and just give them small bite-sized pieces. But data management, not just as important, but it is costly. And that's where we take on some of that. Next slide, please. The other piece that I'd mentioned was the care management piece of it. We've partnered with an organization called Guide Health. Guide Health actually embeds virtually embedded health guides, if you will, that act as an extension of their practice to help provide support, oftentimes for the more complex patients where it's needed. Now, while these guide healths are extensions of the practice, the primary care doctor remains the leader of that healthcare team and is always steering that ship. But these guide healths are there to provide an extra set of hands. And let's see, now that all these tools are in place, some are being rolled out, you know, how are we doing and what do we look like as a PACN? Next slide. So this is a breakdown that shows the membership in the PA Clinical Network by clinician and specialty. You'll see there's more than 50 practices, more than 100 doctors, and over 150 clinicians in total that make up the PA Clinical Network. Next slide. We contract with 7 of what you might consider traditional payers in value-based contracts across different lines of business, whether that's commercial, Medicaid, Medicare Advantage. I can't imagine that any of the names on this screen are new to anyone on this call, but some physicians having access to value-based contracts with these organizations is new, and we get to offer that to them oftentimes for the first time. Next slide, please. An 8th contract is one that is not with the insurance company, but with CMS, who everyone's very familiar with. This is via the PACN ACO, or Accountable Care Organization, which allows clinicians to be rewarded for taking care of the fee-for-service Medicare beneficiaries within their practice. And again, it's an additional value-based contract. This just happens to be the federal government, not with an insurance company. Next slide. So putting all that together in one visual, you'll see the PA Clinical Network covers almost 20 counties across the state. Each red dot on this map represents a practice. The size of that dot represents the size of the practice. We're contracting with the 8 payers that I mentioned on the previous slide. And we have just over 60,000 patients, I believe, enrolled in value-based contracts across the network. So that's a healthy number. This gives you an idea of that we're not really regional. We are statewide, and we welcome that. Next slide. So as a result of the great care provided by the PACN members and the hard work of the practices and the PACN team, we proudly boast that as of recently, we have given back more than $5.5 million to the independent practices that are part of the PA Clinical Network. That's over the last 3 years. It's hard to do that. There's plenty of networks out there that don't make it past a year or two, let alone making it to the point of being able to give money back to the physicians. We're happy to say that we're at more than $5.5 million over the last 3 years. Next slide. So in addition to the core items that we just reviewed, the PA Clinical Network provides some additional resources to our members. Many of these involve unique discounts just to PACN members. To call out a few on this slide, you see Guide Health there in the middle. That's the one that we've partnered with for the chronic care management within the ACO. Risk Strategies is the broker that we work with that helps us shop medical professional liability insurance and has helped us partner with an organization called Curie, who you see there in the middle. Curie is a medical liability insurance company out of North Carolina, but they also have some other strong departments. They do practice advisory, they do wealth management, and they've really broadened what it is they do to serve physicians. And they are a physician-owned organization, which we certainly like as well. And LabCorp is another one on there that we've been working closely with to help roll out any lab services, at least as an option to necessarily going to the hospital or the larger organizations to get lab work done. So these are just a few of the tools that are offered to our members. Next slide. So in summary, our membership, as expected, is 100% independent, which makes the network 100% independent. We have a diverse, wide range of value-based contracts, a favorable shared savings split. The large majority of that money always goes back to the physicians. The ancillary services that I just mentioned on the previous page, we have open lines of communication with payers, which might not seem like a big deal, but I don't know if you guys have heard, but there was this thing called a pandemic and COVID a few years ago. And we were pretty active in communicating with payers and our practices on that. And of course, the ACO that was established just a couple of years ago. Next slide. So you can have it both ways. You can be an independent, autonomous physician and run your own shop, but take advantage of the leverage of like-minded physicians like yourselves, and we can help you with that. And next slide. Encourage everybody to check out the website if you want to learn a little bit more about us, and of course follow us on the usual social network platforms to be kept up with what's going on with the PACN. And the last slide. You can certainly contact Dr. Pagan directly or myself. We'd welcome a one-on-one conversation with anybody that wants to hear more. I'll open it up to you, Dr. Pagan, for any additional comments. I know I went through those slides rather quickly. And then, of course, to those listening in, we'd welcome any comments or suggestions.
No, I think you did a great job as always, Keith. And yeah, feel free to reach out to either of us if you want to learn more about it. You know, in addition to, you know, the additional value-based monies that Keith shared, over $5.5 million back to practices, you know, that's above the fee for service and beyond, you know, above the regular charges that you get. And you also may remember about 4 years ago that the PA Clinical Network was instrumental in getting another $4 million back in the form of a grant there, that the Community Cares grant. So that's not even part of that total as well. So again, it's a pleasure to serve, and as I say, you know, to help the heroes that are helping people every day in that. So yeah, we welcome your questions now, and if you think of them after, certainly shoot a message to Janet or to one of us, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you to you both. One of the things that Avery and I have been working on over the past few months with these calls is to make sure that anyone who does participate in these meetings gets a follow-up message afterwards. In that, with the PACN's approval, we will include the slides so that you have the information. If they would prefer the slides are not shared, that's okay. We will share contact information. We will make sure that that everyone has access to our speakers today, as well as some helpful links after the meeting concludes. Typically, it takes us just a few days to get those follow-up messages out. So if you think of anything after the call, you are welcome to reach out to Avery or myself. If you don't know how to get a hold of us, you can do that through our website using our Contact Us Now. So thank you, PACN. We appreciate you being with us and supporting our meeting today. You're welcome to stay on the call. Before we move on, no cardiologist on PACN is a comment that we just received. Keith or Dr. Pagan, are either one of you able to address that?
Yeah, so you're right. At this time, we have a smattering of different specialties. The mainstay, or at least the quality-based payments, most often now funnel through primary care. So that is the preponderance of our members. The CMS and the ACO in particular, as well as some payment payers, are becoming a little bit more savvy and recognizing that having opportunities for the whole care team, including specialists, is important. And cardiology is one of those critical specialists, in addition to pulmonary and renal, that I think CMS is going to rope in their first round of doing the ancillary specialties. So no, at this point, no cardiologists. We certainly welcome that. Independent cardiologists are extremely valuable in this hospital-based cardiology too. If they should choose to join us, we can talk about that. But again, to date, it's only been independent. Yeah, Dr.
Yeah,
Macarena.
I'm an independent cardiologist for the past 30 years. And
God bless you.
yeah, so I'm a rarity. And so I looked at it and I said, let me just join in, though I'm looking at retiring in a couple of years. I said, let me, just at least I'm pretty much involved in PA Medical Society. I use a lot of the stuff that I need to. So, and if, the thought process was that, is there any role for any cardiologists? Because I'm just trying to figure out in Philadelphia, there should be a lot of independent cardiologists.
Yeah,
In that area.
Philadelphia is a tough market because of the large health systems and the dominant, as well as the payer mix, which is a little bit challenging. There certainly is a role for a cardiologist. As you know, a lot of the chronic care conditions, especially in the older population, have cardiology as one of the issues. Having you potentially be a preferred, even a remote provider or input to complex cardiac care does have potential. I think Keith will follow up with you no matter what, and we could talk about how you might fit into the network there. Again, most of the rewards are primarily focused towards the primary care or the primary physician as the center or the home base for care. But there are new models evolving that can be part of that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much. It doesn't look like we see any other questions. So again, you are both welcome to stay on for the duration of the call. However, we understand if you need to sign off as well. With that being said, we're going to turn the microphone over to Dr. Wheeler, who is the president of the IPPCS and is also a Lehigh County Medical Society member. Dr. Wheeler doesn't have slides today, and we were excited about that because we thought that this would be a really great opportunity for her to join us, share a little bit about what the IPPCS is doing, what their goals are, some of their meetings and their discussion, but more importantly, to take a moment with those of you on the call to have some discussion and interaction with her. So Avery, if you would be okay with it, maybe we stop sharing the slides for now so that Dr. Wheeler's face can be a little bit bigger than a small thumb tile. We will spotlight her. Great. There you go, Dr. Wheeler. We're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, everybody, for giving me this opportunity. I am super excited as other members of the caucus, our independent practicing physician caucus. Last year at the 2023 House of Delegates, the delegates voted to make us a section. So once the bylaws get adopted at this House of Delegates, we will officially go from a caucus to a section. But in the meantime, since last year, we've been meeting regularly about every third Wednesday. So tomorrow night is another meeting to kind of network and caucus and figure out all the different things that we need to do to help the independent practice physicians, but really the future of medicine in general. The way our section, how we view medicine, as PAMED was initially formed, close to 200 years ago, it was independent doctors, it was physician leadership who took that. And that leadership has been taken away by really good business leaders as has come, and the physician leadership is not able to be what it used to be. So the independent doctors is our way of trying to get that leadership back into healthcare. As some doctors will often say, the private practice is dying. And that is true. Just in 2020, about 50% of the country were independent doctors. And then from then to just in 2022, Becker's Hospital Review published that 74% of physicians are employed by hospitals or a third party. And then just PAMED's webinar on just 2 weeks ago, they thought maybe it was upwards of 80. So for numerous reasons with reimbursements and all that, independent practice is, and kind of like a true American, we want to be here for the underdog, which is the independent practice doctors, and to help them not just survive with contract negotiations and all of those things, but to really revitalize and energize the next generation. We would love to work with our medical students and our early career physicians and residents to show them what it means to be an independent doctor, to what that business model looks like. Doctors are good at the healthcare part of it, but the business part of it, and why is it worth doing? Is it, it's after you're already taking care of your patients. So we would like to create an environment in Pennsylvania where our young residents and students have an opportunity to shadow and rotate with independent practice physicians and all of those things. It's going to be, ask for everybody's support on that process, and to not go extinct, but to actually thrive and to become leaders. Because I know I went to medical school because I care about patients, and as the independent practice physician thrives, it benefits across the board. It benefits our patients because it gives them control and choice in what they want to go to. If they want to go to the hospital doctor, independent, they have more opportunities. It gives our employed physicians more negotiating power within their contracts. They don't have to, they know that they can always go and start another practice. And certainly in independent practice, it helps. So that's the goal of our section and our hope and desire. Would love, tomorrow night is our virtual meeting. It's right on the PAMED website. If you go to members or memberships and then to sections, our section is on the very last. And you can say join and you would get a link to our meeting. It's at 8 o'clock at the night, 8 o'clock on third Wednesday of every month. And tomorrow we're going to be doing a lot of discussion on how we're going to get equitable representation that the other sections and other leadership has for our section.
Thank you, Dr. Wheeler. Again, I would encourage anyone who's on the call today, go ahead and pick Dr. Wheeler's brain. She has been I look at it as an advantage because as this caucus, it's so hard. I know it's a tongue twister to say caucus and section at the same time. She's been an advantage because she is in the infancy stage of this section, and it is really neat to see it grow. I have been with the Medical Society for 23 years, and we've watched the ebb and flow of physicians being majority private practice, majority employed, and now we're seeing some of that change. So as we continue to move through time, and more physicians either go back into private practice or begin their practice in the private practice setting, the Medical Society wants to continue to support those individuals. And so I often say that we have a lot of resources from a PAMED perspective for that type of physician. Obviously, we've got resources for all, but we like to combine not only the work that we have and the resources that we have, but also taking the passion of our leadership and bringing that into the work that we do is exciting. So this is a great opportunity for anyone to speak up. I'm not seeing any hands, and I don't think I'm seeing any comments. Avery, if you see any that I'm missing, absolutely, Dr. Macarena.
Yeah, hey, I had a quick question. You know, I was when I was in practice at Eastern Hospital. I'm in private practice, but office-based. Eastern Hospital was part of Drexel. So I have a clinical professorship. And I was looking to see if any students or those who want to be medical students who want to rotate in a cardiology office, private practice cardiology office, I'll be more than happy to help. So that was just what I was offering, because when I was at Eastern Hospital, we used to get medical students from Drexel. But once Eastern Hospital closed in 2020, and we had residents too at Eastern Hospital, everything just died.
That's
So if anybody,
it's so interesting that you bought. I would absolutely love that. Get your contact to do that, and it actually makes me almost tear up when you actually said that. I was remember I was working at St. Luke, and I was in the newborn nursery team when the St. Luke absorbed Eastern Hospital, and we got medical privileges for the hospital in 24 hours to round on the unit. And then I walked into it was so sad because the nurses and everybody, all the doctors who were employed there in that department were let go in 24 hours. And I was the doctor that was going to take care of, this mom who didn't know me, who had another doctor. So that's the type of takeover and all of that the thriving independent practice, that's actually was probably my first introduction into walking into an environment where the nurses and the moms, everybody was unhappy that their doctor wasn't there. And here I am, the doctor that needs to take care of these babies in the NICU and the nursery. And that's when I recognized.
If any, like PAMED, if they know of any students who want to rotate from this area into a private practice setting, that's what since I still have a clinical professor at Drexel, I thought I might as well.
No, so are you going to be at the HOD in?
No, the last meeting was, I think, 2019 that I attended. Then it was COVID. Yeah, so 2019 was the last meeting. Before that, I was at the 2018 meeting because I had received the International Voluntary Service Award from the PAMED for 2018. And so 2019.
No, I would love to get your, if you're not going to be at the HOD and we can't connect in person, I would love to get your information and connect, because once our section forms, that is something I would love to be able to work and collaborate with everybody at a teaching level to show that. Like right here in Lehigh Valley Hospital, this year alone, third-year medical students, 17 of them asked to rotate through a direct primary care clinic. So so the medical students and I think our young learners and patients are asking for this. And I think it's a niche that the medical society can really get behind and support, because it's really good for organized medicine across the board. So I would love to get some students to your office who wants to be there.
Yeah.
So if I could comment, I have two things that are on my mind. If both of the two of you agree, Avery and I would be happy to connect you both via email. We just want your permission to share each
Sure.
other's email address with each other. We can send you both an email so that you can connect via email. So we're happy to assist you with that with your permission. And then in addition to that, to both of your points, as the staff people for the medical student section, Avery and I meet with our governing council, our MSS governing council, on a monthly basis. Dr. Wheeler, if there is a time where you might want to address the student population regarding some of those thoughts and initiatives, I would encourage you work with Heather King and let us know, because we could absolutely try and facilitate some of that. We could also connect you with their leadership, and you could have some offline, if you will, conversations with them to let them know. And in the same regard to you, Dr. Macarena, is that we don't know, of course, all of our medical student members. However, with that being said, we do have a representative and an alternate representative from each medical school. So if you wanted to reach out to us, we could potentially connect you with those individuals, and that might be an opportunity for you to interact and engage with them. We could facilitate that with you and try and get you maybe some of the students from your area rather than across Pennsylvania, because our state is so big. But we would be happy to coordinate some of that for you.
Yep, I would have been.
Can I get one small hot coffee with 2 shots of toasted almond, 2 shots of milk?
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Come on down.
Continue.
So you have, I think Avery has my email.
Yep.
And,
we both.
It's just that I would have been at the House of Delegates, but I go to India twice a year and with devices. And so that's how I will not be there at that time. So.
Well, we will make those connection points for
Yeah.
you. We're happy to help you do that. So thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
Dr. Wheeler, is there anything else that you wanted to put out to the group? And for the group, is there any other questions or comments for Dr. Wheeler before we move on?
The only other thing I'd like to, I forgot to mention, is that on the HOD, on that Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, we do have a room reserved for caucusing and networking, and anybody is welcome to join in that room. That will be wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And for all of you who are still on the call with us, thanks for sticking with us. We're going to try and get through a few more slides just regarding membership benefits. So we've talked a little bit about some of the resources that are available to you as an independent physician or as a member in general. Avery, if you could go ahead and reshare the slides. One of the slides, and I'm not going to have Avery go back to it because it wasn't an interactive slide, but to let all of you know that Dr. Kristen Sandell is our current president. I had her bypass that slide simply to get to our speakers, but her passion is to put the passion back into the practice of medicine and finding that joy again. So As you are looking at maybe your hospital medical staff meeting agendas, or maybe you're part of a group that just needs that spark found again. Dr. Sandell has been traveling around the state similarly to past presidents, and she is working with all of our members on a lot of different levels, whether it's in the medical schools, at private practices, in hospitals, at county medical societies. I know there's a couple people on this call that have already scheduled Dr. Sandell for an upcoming presentation. So please keep in mind that not only Dr. Sandell is our president, but also many of our leaders are open and willing to travel to meetings that you might have within your own communities and your own networks. Avery, if you could change the slide, that would be great. Very quickly, with this being a licensure year, we know that CME is of the utmost importance. We want to encourage you all this year, if you are not yet ready to renew your license because you haven't achieved all of your hours of CME, please do so. We are here to support you in some of those critical areas. Your patient safety risk management can be achieved through our CME consult. We have our child abuse recognition and reporting, which is available again at no charge as a member. We also have our opioid CME. For those of you on the call, we know that you're members, so this part doesn't necessarily affect you, but it might affect somebody that you know or somebody in practice with you. Our opioid CME in the past has historically been open and free to all providers, and it is now a member-only benefit. Non-members are able to access our opioid CME with a charge, so that is an absolute option, or they're able to join and access our opioid CME for free. So keep that in the back of your mind as you're talking to some of your peers. You might have someone say, how are you achieving these hours? Where are you getting this CME? We are still here for not only all of those required components of your CME licensure requirement, but we do have some other CME available through our website. If you struggle in any way, shape, or form with accessing those, reaching out to us, we can help you do that. In addition to our CME, we have, and you'll see, Avery, I don't know if you can just use your cursor and circle around the PAMED licensure resource guide is there, and it talks about what are the education requirements? How do you access the PALS system? How do you reactivate? What's the contact information? Not necessarily for PAMED, but for the State Board of Medicine or for PALS. But in addition to that, what we have also created that is not included on this slide, Avery, that's our note to self that we should include it for our next meeting. It is our licensure renewal checklist. So if you go to our website, if you're not yet there and you're not yet ready to renew and you're not sure exactly all the components that you need, we have a checklist on our website that is really, really helpful. We have it in a print version. So if you happen to be going to a large meeting, we would be more than happy to print those out and send them to you to share with some of your colleagues or your peers. But know that we are working hard to assist our physicians in getting their CME that's required, helping them renew. Something to keep in mind, Avery and I were on a meeting in the last couple of weeks, and the idea of when the holidays, when the end of the year holidays fall. I know not everybody celebrates Christmas, but with Christmas comes closure of offices, and with the new year comes closure of offices. Please pay attention to those dates because they are midweek this year. And so the State Board of Medicine and PALS will be closing their office for a few days at the end of the year. With that being said, if you're an MD and you are struggling to renew your license and you need the State Board or PALS to help you, we want to make sure that you do that prior to those holidays because they might not be available to answer your questions. I don't know the dates that they're closed, but I do know that they're closed for a few days. Avery, next slide. Very quickly, in summary, we always like to share what are some upcoming opportunities that you may be able to learn, grow, or engage with other members or with PAMED. So we have started doing these calls monthly. We have a different focus for every call. We encourage you to jump on every month if you are so inclined. Or we encourage you to wait until you see a promotion. Maybe the topic is going to be of interest to you. Our next call is on September 12th. We are going to consistently start holding these on the same day of every month. Dr. Wheeler, when you mentioned like this is when our caucus meets, absolutely every month. It's so nice to have that set date. So Avery and I have done that. So starting in the fall through 2025, we have those meetings scheduled and we will be consistently meeting at 12 o'clock. So this is something you could put on your calendar and plan to connect with us. It's a great way to gain your resources. It's also a great way to get some information, access, and opportunities from some of our partners or vendors that we may bring in to share with you. Additionally, MedX is Pennsylvania's primary care conference, and I don't have a whole lot of information about it. However, PAMED is a sponsor for that event. It is a free event that is being held in person, but I also think that you have the ability to participate virtually. There's a significant number of CME hours that you are able to achieve if attending, and that is happening September 13th and 14th in the Harrisburg area. And then finally, this might not be of interest to those of you on the call, but if you have an office manager or a practice administrator in your office, it would be of interest to them. We have our fall practice administrator meeting coming up. It will be a few hours long. It's held through our healthcare operations team, and that is when they get together and they really hone in on some of those practice-related components that all of our practices need to be aware of. This group in particular might find interest in it because if you are in private practice, this is a great way to connect your staff to PAMED in order to gain access to some of that information. Many of our larger systems in Pennsylvania, they do offer those resources to their practices. So this is where, for our private practice physicians, you really find a lot of value because you might not know where to find this information otherwise. And finally, we will go to the last slide. I will say thank you very much for being here. Avery, you're welcome to unmute yourself if you would like. I know that I've talked a lot. I thank you all for hanging in there with us today. I think that we've had a lot of good information shared. Avery, if you would like to say anything in closing, I welcome you to do so.
So I just want to say thank you all for being here. We hope that you found some value in attending the call today. And Janet and I are here to help you in any way that you might need. Please feel free to reach out to us either at our phone numbers, our email, or through the PAMED member inquiry system. But we are all very thankful to have you as members. And again, please reach out with any questions, and we will be sending follow-up very shortly this week.
Thanks. If anybody has any additional questions, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, or put them in the chat, or as Avery said, reach out to us. We appreciate you spending your lunch hour with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.